War Sovereign Soaring the Heavens, Chapter 762. No matter if it was the red charm or blue longing, they were recorded in the memories of the rebirth martial emperor. These were two types of wine that could be considered to be fine wine in the foreign lands. Firstly, the red charm could be said to be the improved version of blazer wine, and its medicinal effect and taste far surpassed blazer wine, whereas blue longing was instead the improved version of glaze wine. This red charm and blue longing can't be drunk as how I did before. That method of the rebirth martial emperor can only be used on blazer wine and glaze wine that are comparatively lower in grade. Duan Ling Tian thought in his heart. Feng Tianwu didn't doubt him when she heard his explanation, and then she raised her wine cup and smiled towards Duan Ling Tian. Big brother Duan, try and see what difference this wine has compared to the blazer wine. Duan Ling Tian replied as he picked up the wine cup and placed it by his mouth before taking a sip. A scorching aura spread out within his mouth and then covered his entire body, causing him to feel his entire body becoming hot as the origin energy within his body started to roil ceaselessly. The red charm is worthy of its reputation. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu were quietly drinking here, yet they didn't know that they'd already become the subjects of discussing of the young men and young women at the other three tables. Have all of you seen them before in the past? A young man asked. No. The others shook their heads. Truthfully speaking, that woman is really beautiful. She's even more beautiful than my concubines. Moreover, that figure, tisk tisk. It truly makes one's mouth water. A young man with a slightly wretched appearance laughed slyly, and his eyes were filled with lust. Damn monkey, I want this woman. Right at this moment, the white-clothed young man that sat on the opposite of the young man with the wretched appearance spoke indifferently. The white-clothed young man sat there and vaguely emitted a trace of the dignity of one in his position, and he was obviously born from extraordinary background. The expressions of the young man with the wretched appearance froze when he heard this, and then he revealed a flattering smile. Since third prince wants her, then I natural won't dare act wantonly. Third prince, should I help you invite her over? Yes. The white-clothed young man nodded with approval, and his eyes revealed burning desire. You must not frighten that beauty, otherwise I'll hold you responsible. Yes, yes. The young man with the wretched appearance nodded hurriedly before leaving his seat and walking towards Feng Tianwu. Meanwhile, Duan Ling Tian and Feng Tianwu had just finished drinking a jug of red charm and had bought another jug of blue longing, and they'd even drank a mouthful before noticing the young man with the wretched appearance walking over. Duan Ling Tian's expression remained unchanged as he continued to take a sip of blue longing, and as he felt the icy coldness in his entire body, he felt comfortable all over. What a good wine! Feng Tianwu's beautiful brows slightly frowned and then eased up, and she took a sip of blue longing before lightly closing her eyes to savor her delight at this moment. Young miss, the third prince wants to invite you over. The young man with the wretched appearance looked at Feng Tianwu as he squeezed out a smile that was even more unsightly than a crying expression, and then he looked at the white-clothed young man as if he was indicating to Feng Tianwu to look over. After the white-clothed young man noticed the actions of the young man with the wretched appearance, he looked over with a smile as well. But in next to no time, the smile on his face froze. When he saw the white-clothed young man's expression, the young man with the wretched appearance went slightly grim as he turned around, and only now did he notice that Feng Tianwu had utterly disregarded him. "Young miss, I'm speaking to you." The young man with the wretched appearance took a deep breath and exerted great effort to suppress the rage in his heart. He didn't dare act wantonly before the third prince. But this young man and young woman that he'd never seen in the capital of the Darming dynasty actually dared disregard him. If it wasn't because the third prince had taken a fancy to this woman, he would have flared up since long ago. But unfortunately, Feng Tianwu still didn't pay attention to him. Ha ha. Right at this moment, a young man couldn't refrain from laughing. "Monkey, looks like your face as the young master of the Ho clan isn't great. Third prince is still waiting for you, feel free to ask if you need our help." "One monkey, you've suffered a defeat? Looks like even though you usually boast about how great you are, I never imagined that you were only formidable at boasting. Monkey, come back if you're truly unable. You can afford to lose face, but the third prince can't afford to lose face." Numerous young men and young women couldn't refrain from ridiculing the young man with the wretched appearance. The young man with the wretched appearance took a deep breath when he heard this, and his face was covered in a layer of ice as a fierce light flickered within his eyes. Even though he knew his companions were only joking and weren't really mocking him, he still felt he'd lost face. The eyes of the young man with the wretched appearance revealed a ferocious light as he stared at Feng Tianwu and cursed via voice transmission. "Stinking WH*re, third prince taking a fancy to you is your fortune, don't push your luck. If you don't follow me over to serve the third prince, I'll..." Unfortunately, the young man's voice transmission wasn't finished in the end. Slap. A resounding slap sounded out, and the young man's head tilted as a crimson-red palm print appeared on his face. At this moment, Feng Tianwu glared angrily at the young man, and her beautiful face was covered in ice. A slap caused the entire 9th floor to fall into deathly silence. The young man with the wretched appearance was stunned, his companions were stunned, and the other middle-aged and old men in the 9th floor were stunned as well. As for Duan Lingtian, his eyes emitted a cold light as he stared fixedly at the young man with the wretched appearance. He knew clearly in his heart that this young man had surely said something to Feng Tianwu via voice transmission, and it had infuriated Tianwu. Otherwise, it was impossible for Tianwu to be so angry. Ha 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 ha. In next to no time, the deathly silent atmosphere was broken as some of the companions of the young man couldn't refrain from bursting into laughter. "Monkey, did you say something you shouldn't have to this maiden? Third prince asked you to invite her over, how could you have infuriated her instead?" "Exactly. You can't even accomplish a small matter like this. How can you have the nerve to call yourself a friend of the third prince when you go out?" The ridicule of his group of companions entered into the ears of the young man with the wretched appearance, who was struck into a daze, and he completely recovered from his shock. "Stinking WH*re. You dare hit me? Die." The young man glared as he raised his hand to swing his palm at Duan Lingtian. "What the hell? Even my parents haven't hit me like this in my entire lifetime." How could he swallow his rage from being hit by a woman today? Feng Tianwu revealed a disdainful expression when facing the palm the young man struck at her. In her eyes, the speed of the young man's attack was truly pitiably slow. Right when she was about to make a move, she seemed to have noticed something and put down her hand that she'd just raised. Because a person had made a move before her, and it caused a trace of happiness to flash past her eyes. Bang! Duan Ling Tian's hand seemed as if it was assisted by the gods, and it easily grabbed onto and tightly held onto the hand the young man swung at Feng Tianwu. His icy cold eyes looked straight at the young man. The young man's expression went grim and wanted to struggle free, yet he noticed that the strength of this violet-clothed young man that was younger than him seemed to be shockingly strong. Even if he exerted his entire strength, he was unable to struggle free. "Kid, you're courting death." Instantly, the young man with the wretched appearance shouted out explosively, and then his other hand formed a fist before smashing towards Duan Ling Tian. Swoosh! Origin energy skyrocketed atop his fist as it smashed, and concept followed the origin energy like a shadow, and it seemed like a cannonball that flashed out swiftly while giving rise to a wave of jarring explosions of the air. At the same time, the energy of the heaven and earth surged in the sky above the young man before condensing into form. 10 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared first before another 7 ancient horned dragon silhouettes appeared. 7th level of the void initiation stage. 7th level elementary concept. Duan Ling Tian moved once more, instantly withdrawing his hand that held onto the young man's hand before grabbing out like a bolt of lightning that moved along a tricky angle towards the fist that smashed at him. Bang! After Duan Ling Tian grabbed onto the young man's fist, his gaze went cold, and he didn't hesitate in the slightest to directly exert force in his hand. Crack! Ah! Clear sounds of shattering that were accompanied by a wave of miserable shrill cries sounded out. Subsequently, the young with who had his fist crushed by Duan Ling Tian was pushed flying before fiercely smashing to the ground and rolling on the ground in a sorry state. Whoosh! 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 Practically at the instant the young man's fist was crushed by Duan Ling Tian and was pushed out flying, his group of companions that originally carried ridiculing smiles on their faces all had grim expressions. Besides the white-clothed young man, the third prince, that still sat on the spot, the other young men and women had left their seats. Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but be stunned when he saw their actions. Weren't these people ridiculing the young man with the wretched appearance earlier? Why do they seem to be concerned about the young man now? How could Duan Ling Tian have known that these people ridiculed the young man earlier because they were familiar with the young man and were joking with him, as they wanted to see the young man make a fool of himself? Yet now, the young man was heavily injured, and as his companions, they naturally had to stand up for him. "Damn monkey, are you all right?" A young man squatted down, and he couldn't help but gasp after he checked the injuries of the young man with the wretched appearance. At the same time, he looked at Duan Ling Tian. "What maliciousness! Do you know who he is? What's wrong?" Instantly, the other young men and young women looked at the young man. Monkey's hand, the tendons and meridians in his hand are shattered and are completely crippled. Even a grade 3 life recovery pill is probably unable to save him. The young man spoke with a heavy tone. "What?" Besides the white-clothed young man whose brows raised and glanced deeply at Duan Ling Tian, the expressions of the other companions of the young man with the wretched appearance instantly darkened. "Kid, you attack so ruthlessly. Kid, unless you leave behind a hand and a leg today, otherwise, Don't dream of leaving. Exactly, leave behind a hand and a leg. 10 young men and young women surrounded Duan Lingtian's table, and eyed Duan Lingtian with hostility as if they were deeply afraid Duan Lingtian would flee. I don't want his hand and leg. Right at this moment, the young man with the wretched appearance consumed a healing medicinal pill and endured the intense pain to walk over with large strides, and he stared at Duan Lingtian with a cold and fierce gaze. I want him dead. If I don't kill him, then I, Ho Jun, vow to die. A hand and a leg. Duan Lingtian's gaze was extremely calm as he swept the 10 young men and young women with his indifferent gaze, and then his gaze descended onto the young man with the wretched appearance in the end. If you don't kill me, then you vow to die. Looks like you want to die. 1TL note, they call him monkey because the Ho in Ho clan sounds the same as the Ho in Ho Zi, which means monkey.